Okay, so we've got
Are we connected?
we are connected.
Oh, it's a miracle.
I know. I was doing a totally separate video from you, but we are here.
Oh, how wonderful. Hi, Yolanda. Nice to see you again.
So good to see you too. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I just finished doing a little music theory for my bass, so my brain is in a completely different space.
Oh, so what is that? Is that part of work that you teach or do or?
No, I'm always doing something creative, and I took up the bass probably 3 months ago, and my teacher is forcing me to do music theory because it appeals to why I'm doing it, which is to understand rhythm and timing better, because I'm an amateur songwriter, so it's a necessary evil.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So I just want to say hi to the people who are starting to join. So you can see on your screen, right? You can see the little hearts and um, who's joining. Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone now, if you have any questions for Halli about meditation and even anything that you heard in her podcast, be sure to type in your questions so she can answer them while we have her here with us tonight. One of the things I actually wanted to ask you about too, um, that, where people always ask about this in particular because they think meditation is meant for just, um, you know, like quieting the mind, like we talked about on the show. But I was wondering if you could share with people some other benefits of just like everyday life management of why meditation is so beneficial to us.
Yeah, sure. I was actually thinking about this earlier today and kind of reviewing our last discussion. And one of the things I've noticed, after having had a meditation practice for so many years now, that there's an increased awareness for my own responses. Um, so especially with the program that I offer, there's the stillness that is invited in meditation allows us to observe our physical responses. It
Yeah.
helps us to observe our emotional reactions to situations, and then gives us the opportunity, because we recognize those, it's not unconscious and we're not just reacting to whatever's happening, that we can then pause long enough to make a choice about how we want to continue. So I've noticed, something will happen, like I'll hear a newscast or something, and there will be an emotional, physical response to what I've just heard, because as we all know, a lot of that stuff is negative. And I can notice it because my breath all of a sudden is shallow, or my chest or my belly is grown tight. And
Right.
I have the choice in that moment to take a breath and decide to let it go. So there's a way of managing stress that meditation makes possible that I don't think we really even notice if we don't take the time to really tune in the way meditation invites.
That's such a good point. I mean, it is actually, that's how I was led to meditation. Let's see, in the chat room, we have someone saying, hi, Hallie.
Hey,
Hi.
Michelle.
Yes, she said, your story is so amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Michelle. Thanks for coming on. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. And again, if you guys have any questions, just type them here so that Hallie can see them. But the stress management part, that's actually how I was introduced to meditation because I was dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety, and it was recommended. And now I can't say, I mean, I use that technique all the time. It's the meditation I always say is what has saved me. So
Mm-hmm.
many,
Yes.
yeah, it really, really has. I thought of you last night, funny enough. I saw a magazine, I actually bought it for a friend of mine. Time magazine has a special edition out on
I
mind,
saw that.
yeah, in meditation. So the world is changing. People are starting to tune in and catch on to the benefits of it.
And that's great because it works. And what's nice about what's happening in the mainstream right now is that there's all sorts of science that's backing these claims up that, are millennia long now. And so, those of us who have thought that it's, a little bit woo-woo or, only for people who want to be ascetic or um, be a hermit from society is no longer the case. It's really, mindfulness and meditation is for everyone. I'm really glad to see it going mainstream. And
Yes.
it's a great way for us to manage our responses and to have a choice to either engage in something or to let it go.
Yeah, we have another message for you. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, let me see it. Hey, Michelle, let's see. She's asking about the 9-week program and wanted more information. Is it best to send email through the website? Sure, that's fine if you want to do that, or you can just email me directly, and it's Halli at hallibourne.com. It's HALLIBOURNE.com. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, let's talk about the 9-week program for sure. I'd love to.
Beautiful. And one of the things too that came up around that, I had a few people ask, and since you're here, I can ask you directly about that. So, do you actually teach people how to meditate in specific ways? Does it correlate with what's going on with them? Is it you tune into them and kind of go that way, or what is that like?
Yeah, I feel like you just asked me 10 questions.
I know I did.
Let me try and sort through it. So I definitely have a style that I'm promoting that I'll call a yogic based style, which just means that it's based in the body and it's based in deepening the breath. And it is a way of honing the focus. There are other types of meditation that work with just focusing on the breath, or it works with opening the awareness outward, or there's a mantra that we're focusing on. But in the style that I'm offering, um, the teaching is about learning to recognize physical stress responses, emotional and mental stress responses, and then is all tied to learning how to relax those responses, to be loving and compassionate around that noticing, letting go of the judgment, which is how it becomes mindful,
Mm-hmm.
and allowing the deepening and the slowing down of the breath to create relaxation in all of those areas. So that's kind of the essential nature of the program. However, if people say, well, this is my particular problem, which is I'm really not feeling very confident in my life, there's a way that we'll kind of tweak the teaching to address that particular issue for a person. So yeah, it's got some customization in that way in the 9-week program. And then in addition to that, with the 18-week program, the client gets an additional 3 months with me, and there's a lot of flexibility at what could happen in that 3 months, which is we can apply these techniques in a larger arena. We can also deepen the practices, so there are yogic breathing techniques that I can teach. There's readings I can direct people to. And then there's just a lot more one-on-one time to actually work with life coaching to help people address the issues that they're coming to me for.
Yeah, I
Does that
think
answer all of those 10 questions you just set my way?
yeah, you did a great job, actually, I have to
Okay, good.
say. You knocked it out. One of the things too, I mean, even with that, I mean, it brings up, I think it's such a beautiful thing that there are, even people like you who share these techniques, because it's amazing when you think about our design and how we are literally designed to self-regulate and self-heal and be able to
Hmm.
transform and manage our own fields, but it's just learning the tools to really be able to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the learning I think is what keeps a lot of people from starting, is because it can seem really daunting.
Right.
And this is what I can report after, I've been trying to meditate for a good 25 years, but I'm going to say I've been really dedicated for about 16 or 17 years. And now that I have been doing this for so long, I can report that there's a change in the way that I think There's a change in the way that my brain works and the way that I respond to stress in the moment.
Yes.
And it's really neat to see that even if something is powerfully affecting me, that I can still have more than one perspective at a time, you know, so it allows for paradox to exist. It allows for contradictions to exist where, you know, I don't necessarily have to identify with any one thing, but I have access to an open perspective because of this consistent meditation practice.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the beauties of it all. I mean, you know, I was telling a friend too recently, we're actually talking about this last night. It's very close to what you're saying about how, you know, we have these different levels of awareness and we have these different points of view that we're able to access at any time. And a lot of times we just don't, we're not observant enough to allow ourselves to access these other, you know, points of focus or levels of perception. And it even reminds me of, you know, I always say, if someone told me of everything I practice, if I could only practice one thing from now on, it would be meditation, because you can access it all through meditation.
Oh, I like that. That's a tough question. I
Uh,
hope you were drinking wine when you were talking about that.
oh, no. It probably would have been more interesting that way. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's,
we had Mo just join us asking about intuition.
yes.
Do you think that that means, does meditation affect intuition? How would you interpret that question?
Yeah, I think maybe in relation to what you were talking about, having like a different point of reference, like what the meditation has helped you to access different um, states of consciousness or points of view. Like, is intuition part of that? I don't know. Could you
Mm-hmm.
clarify for us? But maybe it is.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I feel like, you know, intuition is something that everyone wants, but everyone has a hard time trusting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something else I can report from a long-standing practice of meditation, is that there's, you know, there are messages that we get from ourselves. And that's why my program is broken down into physical, emotional, and mental stress responses, because all of those levels of us are always informing the way that we respond to the world and what's happening.
Right.
And intuition, I think, is a really crucial part of that. And intuition is linked to our own wisdom. And this is separate from our conditioning as children. It's separate from our culture and society, but is really based in something that's unique and foundational to us. I'm the only person that can know what's truly right for me, despite what any of my well-meaning friends or family might suggest.
Yes.
Really, I'm the one who has to come down and sit with it and decide what is right for me in this situation. So I'm going to say that absolutely meditation helps to shift the distrust from all of these other voices that we're all contending with all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and to get clear about what's my voice, what is it that I need in this moment, and how can I respond most compassionately and effectively in this moment. Do you
Yeah.
think that that gets at it?
Yeah, yeah, they gave a thumbs up as you're talking, so I assume that
Oh,
answered.
great.
Yeah,
Yay. Thumbs up to you.
yeah. It really
Good.
interesting in that way, because I do think, you know, I always tell people to kind of play with being in the analytical mind and that intuitive space simultaneously, because we are taught and conditioned in so many ways to be in our analytical minds, or even we,
Right.
you know, get some tools to go into our creative space, but no one really teaches us to access that intuitive knowing. And it's so helpful because, you know, while our analytical mind and our emotional self may be at war, you know, our intuitive mind is neutral and is, you know, above the noise. So it's a beautiful thing to really be able to tune into. And again,
Yes.
meditation is the key for that, or at least it was for me.
Yeah. The thing about meditation that's so unique from the rest of our lives is that, we're always engaged with others. We're always kind of looking around and then responding or reacting to what's happening.
Right.
And meditation is this opportunity to just eliminate all of the noise. Not to say that everything in the world is noise, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And to just kind of be sitting with your own voice, and the all the noise that's in your own mind or heart, and it gives us access to start to filter it, to filter it all out. And occasionally there's absolute quiet, and always there's an effectiveness with just being able to sit with whatever's happening inside of us, whatever we're processing, whatever difficulties we're facing, and be able to just let go. It's really a practice of surrender more than
Yeah.
anything else, right? Where
Yeah.
you don't have to be identified with any of the stuff that's coming up in your mind, or even the physical reactions that might be going on in the body. It's about surrendering. I can just let go. I can just be for this 30 minutes or 5 minutes or however long.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, I think is important for people to know. And oftentimes I think there's an idea that as soon as you close your eyes, you're supposed to be in this deep meditative state. And it can be different every single time. And sometimes you'll go into that space and just you dissolve and you can let go. And other times you have to kind of sit through the discomfort and sit through your stuff before you
Mm-hmm.
allow that surrender.
Yeah, I'm so glad you put it that way. Sitting with our stuff, I think, is another big reason why a lot of people don't meditate,
Right.
is because it's hard, it's scary. And most of us have a shadow side. Most of us have things we don't want to look at. And it can be really challenging to sit with all of your judgments about yourself and all of your concepts about who you think you are and who you should be. And that's really worthwhile. Like, that's what makes meditation kind of a tool for spiritual warriors, is
Yeah.
because if we can sit through our own darkness, we can really handle whatever this life throws at us. We don't have to be afraid about what's coming, and we don't really have to spend a lot of time about catastrophizing scenarios. We can really start to embrace things because we have courage, and we know
Yes.
it because we have sat through this, you
Yes.
know? So,
I like that title. It seems so fitting, Spiritual Warriors, because I always tell people it takes a lot of heart to do this work. And it takes a lot of
mm-hmm,
heart and courage to really be able to look at yourself and sit and move beyond the judgment and the criticism and all of the stuff that we have. But the only way we can do it is for us personally to show up to do it. So you have another question.
yeah, let me take a look at that. So this is from Michelle. Again, I recently started practicing Kundalini yoga and noticed a big difference in awareness and energy from the different methods I've practiced in the past. Any particular style you tend to be drawn to in yoga? Oh, I love that question. You really want to get me going on this, don't you, Michelle? So I started my yoga journey with Iyengar yoga, which was really great because it's a yoga of precision. And because of my car accident, with my broken legs and busted pelvis and stuff, it was really important for me to be founded in structure. And then at some point, I found that the structure, I think this was after about 5 years of really consistent practice, I wanted to get creative again. So that was when I discovered Kundalini. And I know just what you're talking about with how you feel like it's opened your awareness. It's a really dynamic practice. And Kundalini is exactly the opposite of Iyengar in that it has almost no structure as far as how you're supposed to do poses or holding poses even. has a lot more to do with breath. And I learned so much about breath work by practicing Kundalini. And it's still very much it's still very much a part of my practice. I've also studied Vini Yoga, which is a therapeutic style of yoga where the breath is used to move in and out of poses. There's not a lot of holding. That too is dynamic, but it's a lot slower than Kundalini. And then my certifications are all in Kripalu Yoga, which is an inclusive style that really honors all traditions and has more to do with adaptability, with adapting practices to the person who is practicing. So I'm a real fan of Kripalu because of that. It's where I found my home. But I think Kundalini has a lot of power to teach the movement of energy, just as you said. So that's my feeling about Kundalini and styles in general. I think they all have something to offer, but that's my journey to offer to you.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that because, I mean, you know, we talk about everything in this, you know, arena, whether it's the meditation, energy work, and yoga. But I think even with that, I mean, just like the meditation, a lot of people think there's only one way. And the same with yoga, people don't realize there are so many different styles and there's something for everyone, really.
Yeah, and you know, it's a journey. We don't have to, I mean, that's the great thing about being American is that we have a buffet available to us and we get to pick and choose at will and figure out what's right for us. And you know, just as I was saying, Iyengar was a great place for me to start, and it's still a foundation of what it is that I teach and what I practice. But it was important for me to explore these other styles and figure out what was really going to work for me, for my temperament, for my rhythm, for my need for creativity, you know, all of those things.
Yeah. Kundalini is definitely one of those ones that you have to push past your stuff. When I did my well, I started with Bikram. Bikram was my
Oh,
introduction.
cool.
And I enjoyed that because of the consistency with flow. You know, you do the same flow every time, so you get to kind of see your progression. But then I did my teacher training in Hatha Yoga, and there was a lot of focus on the Eightfold Path and the breath work and all of these things.
Great. Yeah.
But Kundalini, we had to do as part of our training, as a portion of it, and it was so hard for me. It was really.
What did you find challenging about it?
I think I was amazed at how people could really breathe beyond the discomfort of holding certain things and the certain movements while chanting. And I mean, there were just a lot of components, and it brings up a lot. I mean, a lot stirs in you when you're controlling and directing energy in a very,
Yeah.
you know, intentional way. A lot comes up. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely challenging, but it kind of reminds me of, again, that parallel with meditation and how it can be a challenge for some people at some times because of this idea that it's just meant to clear the mind, but not recognizing the beauty of how much it teaches you even discipline to be able to sit through your stuff and sit beyond the judgment and really access this love of yourself.
Yeah. Oh, you're so good at this, Yolanda. I really appreciate the directions that you take our conversation. That is what I think is one of the most important components of meditation is learning how to stay. And
Right.
I learned that term from Pema Chodron, who's just a wonderful teacher of Buddhist practices. And learning to stay. So she has this wonderful discussion about having scabies and how when you have scabies you just want to itch, you just want to, you have an itch and you want to just scratch it, right? And so many of us are like this in our lives with, I'm hungry, I want to eat, I'm thirsty, I want to drink, I am feeling desire, I want someone to enact that upon, right? Like just this always looking for something to satisfy the itch.
Yes.
And so sitting through and not scratching is what I think meditation does more than anything else. So the idea that we just come to meditation so we can escape or so we can veg out is so misinformed.
Right.
Because when you've committed to a half an hour or an hour and you've decided my phone is off, I'm not answering my kids right now, they're occupied, my husband or my partner, job, all of it is outside of this, and
Yes.
I'm just going to sit with whatever this is. Sometimes it's tough. It
Yeah.
is tough to sit through the stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
And when I think about meditating after my brother died, oh my gosh, the intense grief and pain and regret that came up after his death, gosh, sitting through that taught me so much, because the quality of all of those emotions can keep circling and cycling back around to ways that we don't accept ourselves, ways
And
that we don't accept the way that life moves, ways that we can't accept what other people have done, what we've done ourselves, right? Like sitting through that stuff is really, really hard, but that's what creates the resilience and the emotional intelligence. So meditation is a place where courageous people go. It's not for people who want to escape, because it doesn't
yes.
really offer that.
Yes, and there you go. It comes right back to that, term you use, the spiritual warriors. I mean, it does take a lot of heart, but how beautiful it is when we are able to, and it just takes, that one time or a few times where we break through our own like perfect pictures and realize that it's okay, that we have enough, and we come into like this deep appreciation of finally being able to see it and understand it and let go of the judgment. Meditation's everything. It's everything.
Yeah, and it changes everything. You just reminded me of one of the trainings I did for meditation with a wonderful teacher who I hope to do more study with. His name is Sadir, Jonathan Faust is his name. And one of the practices that he was taking us through every so often through this long meditation, it was a 3-day silent retreat that we were doing. He kept asking us the question, can I be here even for this? Can I be here even for this? And so in my experience, there was so much about what was rising in those moments, especially when you do it over a course of days. It's like the filters just start coming off and you get more and more bare and raw. And can I stay here even for this? It does, like you were just saying, it breaks through all those barriers of judgments and the requirements of perfection that so many of us are kind of under the grips of. That, gosh, it's kind of wonderful to be a glorious mess. you
Right?
know I mean, I ask some of my clients this who are perfectionists, and I get a lot of perfectionists, which I don't think is coincidental, being a perfectionist myself. Yeah, so I know how to work with perfectionists because I get it. Most of my clients, when I ask them, so what would it look like for you to be perfect, don't even know. They're like, well, right? Like it's just this sort of arbitrary idea of perfection that they're trying to live up to, which is a
Right.
great way to guarantee failure, like personal failure, just on and on and on.
Right.
And when we can break through those, there's so much freedom. Like there's a lot of stress that comes just from these ways of being that we think we have to uphold, that, the world is going to fall apart if we don't do this the way such and such said we should.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you said that too about being a glorious mess, because I have a lot of people ask me, it's funny, a lot of people assume like, oh, if you meditate all the time, you must be happy all the time. Like, no, I cuss the universe out sometimes. Like, listen, I have my moments of madness. I have my moments of like absolute breakdown, like full blown cry, tears, whatever. But it's just that resilience. And it's that allowing myself to go through whatever I'm feeling without judgment, just observing like what I'm holding and why, and just understanding what's coming up, and even tapping into that, you know, higher consciousness to see it from that higher point of view. And then I'm able to move on, and I feel better, and I feel lighter, and I'm not hanging on to like all of this like shit of, oh my God, I can't believe I wasn't happy for a moment, right? A lot of us beat ourselves up over that.
Yeah, yeah. I like to call that the cult of happiness. I feel like there's a real problem right now with everybody feeling like we need to go around being happy all the time. And that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You know, because when there's death and suffering and war, you know, happiness is not necessarily the appropriate response. So, what I feel like we're talking about here is really how to move through the life more gracefully in a way. And so that doesn't mean that we're always smiling and always looking on the bright side or any of that kind of stuff, but more that we can see it for what it truly is. Like meditation is about getting real. It's not
Right.
about escapism. It's not about being happy and vegetative all the time. It's about what is really going on here and understanding that it's possible to be both happy and sad at the same time. You know, you can actually hold multiple emotions simultaneously, and it doesn't make you right or wrong or good or bad. It
Yes.
just is, right? And
Yeah.
then you get to feel whatever you're feeling, not judge yourself for feeling it, especially if it's something really untoward like anger or
Right.
jealousy, right? Or hatred,
Right.
even.
Yeah.
You know, even if we're feeling those things, we can feel it without judging it, and then we can decide to let it go. We don't have to let it
That matter.
identify who we are.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think, you know, and I always try to encourage people, you know, you have to be able to identify it and acknowledge it, or else you're just going to keep carrying it with you as like this background noise that you're actually acting from and creating from and living from. So it's like, you know, it's so liberating, really, when we allow ourselves to go deep into connection with really seeing who we are. And again, you know, I think meditation, if that was all I could do, that would be my go-to.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would miss yoga though. So it's hard it's hard to say that. To me, they're kind of the
Like
same
the
thing, but I get you.
yeah. So I know we only have a little time left with Halli. So please, if you have any questions for her, feel free to type them in. Questions about meditation, her journey, anything that she has shared, feel free to type it in so she can get to that for you. Yeah, it's so much fun talking to you about this stuff, and it's one of my favorite things because I mean, you could just go on in so many directions.
I know it's a deep, 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 vast expanse that we're talking about here.
Right. But it's really cool. I think, you know, I hope that even the people watching now are having a wider perspective around what meditation is. And now even I'm like, oh, we need to go on like a meditation campaign. Like I think there's so many
Yes.
people who really would benefit from knowing exactly what we've been talking about, because I think it would even help people not be so afraid to try, and recognizing that they don't have to be this perfect like yogi in order to attempt meditation, and you know, like really just letting themselves a chance to have the experience.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And I want to be on your meditation campaign for sure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I created my program is that I feel like if people felt really supported, you know, it's something that I really love offering. Like, I want to hold your hand through this because I've been there. I know what it's like. I know the pitfalls of an early practice. And I can kind of just wipe all that out for you and just get you right down to the joys and the benefits of meditation, kind of saving you all of the questions of, am I doing it right? And what if I don't feel like doing it? And what if I get afraid? Or, you know, just really being able to lay it out. This is what you can expect. This is what it looks like. And I'm right here with you.
Yeah, I have to ask you because I noticed this for myself. Um, in the beginning, I just, you know, I showed up to practice every day just because it was something I wanted to kind of break through that discomfort of only being able to sit for, you know, a few minutes and whatever. But as I kept going, and you know, it's like the time that you sit just naturally starts to extend, and you don't even, it's like time dissolves. But then now I notice such a difference if I don't meditate. It has a big impact on like me, my feeling, my day when I don't do it. Actually, instead of answering me, you have a question.
Yeah, Mo, welcome back. Is there a wrong way to meditate? I'm a beginner. Hmm. Hmm. I don't know about that. I don't have a ready answer for that. I feel here, I'll answer it this way. I feel like if you're showing up, you're doing it right.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean there are probably, I would have to know more about what you're doing and what you're experiencing from what you're doing, in order to answer that more directly. But really, I think the most important thing about meditation is to set aside the time and to show up for it consistently. And um, just being compassionate with yourself. I don't really think there is a wrong way. We
Yeah,
can talk more about that.
I love that, just showing up. I mean, that's huge. And it's the same, like our practice, it really does expand as we keep showing up. So, you know, even looking back, the meditation practice for me in the beginning doesn't look like what it does today. I mean, for that matter, I
Right.
mean, sometimes could look different day to day, but it really does change just by showing up. Let's see, Kesley, amen. I actually broke a toe the day I skipped meditation. No joke.
Oh, yeah, that's the universe coming back and saying you need to slow down.
Slow down, tune in. Yeah. So, do we have any more questions for beautiful Halli before we go? You look so lovely, by the way, and I love that necklace.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
So
so
pretty.
much. I think this is my favorite one right now.
It's very pretty. To give a few seconds to see if anyone asks anything else. I'm so glad that we were able to connect and that you came on the podcast to talk about this. And who would have thought like a conversation about meditation could get so meaty and just love stuff.
I know. I love it. I love, excuse me, I love talking about meditation. It's just such a beautiful practice. And
It really is.
I think if more of us were able here, this is something I really want to say to your listeners, that without meditation, it's really easy to be led around the nose by the ego. And
Ah,
the ego is the least mature part of our beings. It's just kind of our way of interfacing with the world. And it's kind of like letting a toddler drive a car. Really, toddlers have no business driving cars, which means, which is translated here into the ego really has no business running our lives because it's not all that wise. There's another part of us that's much wiser than the ego. And for me, when I skip meditation, it seems like the whole day then has this egoic pallor. And I notice that I have to work so much harder to see myself through the midst of all of that, so that being run around by the nose kind of thing. Meditation really helps us to stay connected to the higher order of thinking and being, and to stay connected to the center and the wisdom, especially for those of us who want to live a more conscious life and who want to be kinder to ourselves and to others. Meditation is essentially a way to remind ourselves of that every day.
yes. Yes, that's so true. And it's a beautiful teacher. And it's interesting because in that space, I mean, it's like that higher aspect of you really becomes the teacher. And you do become more aware
Yeah.
outside of meditation of, you know, which space you're allowing to lead, whether it's the ego or that higher awareness. So, yeah, I mean, there are so many benefits to meditation. And hopefully, and now even looking at that magazine that came out by Time
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, more people are becoming aware, and it's really inspiring.
It's very exciting. It's a great time for it to be happening.
Yeah. So I know I don't want to take too much of your time. You've been with us here for about 40 minutes, and I'm so thankful again to have had you on the show. And when this is over, if you can, just as a reminder for people, type your website in the comments section of this. That would be great.
Sure.
And how to get in touch with you. So if they have any follow-up questions, and even for people who listen or watch this later, they can know exactly how to get in touch with you.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Thanks so much for giving me this platform and giving me a chance to connect with your listeners. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, I always say there's nothing better than us all sharing and exchanging this way. It's how we expand this consciousness, which we all really need right now. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, in community.
Yes, in community. Yep. So thank you so much, Halli. And I know you and I will keep in touch. So I'll
Please,
talk to you
let's.
soon.
Yes, definitely. See you all later.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.